There's nothing quite like the smell of fresh homemade rolls filling the kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make soft golden rolls that melt in your mouth. Perfect for any family dinner or Sunday meal. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me today on my channel. Today I am going to be making our favorite rolls in our house. Now I make these anywhere between 1 to 2 times a week. My kids use them for egg and sausage sandwiches in the morning or turkey sandwiches in the afternoon, and then we also have them with like soups and stuff like that. So it's a really easy recipe, and I'm going to show you what we're going to add and to get going. So I have 1 cup of warm water in here and 4 tablespoons of melted butter. Now I just heat it up in the microwave. If you aren't into using microwaves, you can heat it up right on the stove. So I'm going to add that in first. You want to make sure it's warm because we are making a yeasted dough. I got 1/3 cup of brown sugar. Now, if you prefer a more crunchy exterior, you can use honey, and some people do prefer that with bread. And then I'm gonna give that a little quick mix real quick. And I'm gonna put in 2 eggs at room temperature. So, of course, that is important. You don't wanna be putting cold eggs in with your warm water and warm butter. I'm gonna give that a quick mix. Now, with all of my bread recipes, I use what's called the half whole method. I'm gonna be using half freshly ground wheat. I did white wheat this time, and then I'm gonna use half all-purpose flour. Now, the reason I do that is because I love the nutrients that you get from the fresh ground wheat, but I'll be perfectly honest, my kids don't love it when I make it with 100% of the freshly milled wheat. It does turn out a little dense, so it's not as good and fluffy. So with every single one of my breads, my sourdough, loaves for sandwiches, I do half freshly milled flour and half all-purpose flour. Now, if I'm doing a quick bread, a muffin, or a waffle, I will do 100% of the freshly milled flour. So I'm gonna add in 2 cups of my freshly milled white wheat berries. I just did this like 30 minutes ago. And I'm gonna mix this up only for 1 minute. So let me get that going. I use a spatula to get down on the sides. I wanna make sure that it's fully incorporated. As that's mixing, I'm gonna add in about a teaspoon of salt. Now I'm gonna pause it right there, and I'm gonna put the lid on. Now, because I'm using the freshly milled wheat, I am gonna let this sit for 15 minutes. That way, all of the liquid is going to absorb into the wheat, and you'll get a really fluffy roll. When we come back, we're gonna be adding the additional flour and the yeast. All right, we're back. What I'm gonna do now is I'm using instant yeast. That's my favorite, especially with rolls. I'm gonna sprinkle it in. Now I'm gonna add about 1.5 cups of white flour, all-purpose flour. Now we're gonna knead this for about 15 minutes. The dough will still be kind of sticky, but you'll want that because we want a fluffy roll. But also, you don't have to use a machine like this. You can do all of this by hand and you will still get a delicious roll. So I'm gonna go ahead and knead this for about 15 minutes. All right, I want you to get a look at this consistency because obviously that is too sticky of a dough. So I'm gonna be adding in an additional 1/2 cup of flour. So we are at 2 cups of all-purpose and 2 cups of the freshly milled. All right, we've done about 10 minutes of kneading. Why don't you come and take a look at the dough. See how it is still a little bit sticky. So I'm gonna use my scraper in here before I reach in with my hands. I'm gonna oil them a little bit. The hardest part sometimes is getting it off of this thing right here, the middle. There we go, we got it. All right, I've already oiled a bowl over here. I like to make sure I get a majority of it out because I don't want to be wasting any. All right, I'm gonna form this into a ball really quick. Now, a tip, if you just happen to be using a crock pot that day, which I am, I'm making some white chicken chili. So I'm gonna actually put these rolls over by the crock pot, and it takes sometimes less than an hour for them to rise a lot. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna cover this with plastic wrap, and I'm gonna throw a towel over it, and we'll be back in about an hour or so to shape out our rolls. Go. All right, we're back. We're gonna get these. So this roll recipe makes 12. You can double it, which is nice to do sometimes because then you can freeze the other ones. Now, I know some people like to weigh it and make their rolls like exactly the same size. I'll be honest, I'm not like that. I just like them to taste really good and be mostly uniform, so. All right, what you're gonna do is you're gonna come over here, we're gonna pinch the bottom, flip it over, and give it a nice roll. I'm gonna be putting all 12 of them on here, and they are gonna rise for an additional about 35 to 45 minutes. Kind of just depends. You'll want them, you'll know when you look at them that they'll be nice and fluffy. All right, we're gonna cover these with a towel, and we're gonna wait about 35 to 45 minutes. In about 35 minutes now, I'm gonna put them in the oven at 375 for 20 minutes. Sometimes they go for 22, you just gotta check on them and make sure they're not too brown. You guys, check these out. They are just so great. We love them. The bottom, perfect golden color. I hope you guys enjoy these as much as my family does.